Good afternoon. I'm Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. I represent the 18th Congressional District, and I chair the Subcommittee on Crime, Terrorism, and Homeland Security of the House Judiciary Committee. I'm delighted to have my colleague, the Honorable Al Green, a senior member and a chairman of the Investigatory Committee of the Financial Services Committee. We've just come from the installation of the new president of the NAACP, so we are infused with the idea of Ben Crump and to the Floyd family of never giving up on justice and never giving up on equality, never giving up on the fight that propelled the NAACP more than 100 years ago, when in actuality they were founded because of two black boys that were arrested in Springfield for interacting with whites, and they were in jail, and there was a mob of whites who wanted to do them in. Many instances, blacks were at that time 1909, 1908, 1909, it happened in 1908, were pulled out of jail and hung. And so they were moved to protect them, and the mob then went to burn down 40 houses. This is also the 100th year of Ben Crump and to the Floyd family of the Tulsa riots, where another mistaken brother who was allegedly interfering with someone who was white, and a white mob went to the Black Wall Street 100 years ago, and they buried 300 blacks in an unmarked grave. And we don't come here today in anger and anguish. We come here with a duty, a sense of duty. That duty is propelled by the scholarly lawyers, but it is most propelled by this family of our neighbor. Our neighbor is George Floyd. Our neighbor was raised in CUNY homes. Our neighbor's mother was an activist, a caretaker of children who did not have places to go. This family was raised on service. George Floyd was a big umbrella, if you will. He was a mighty source of inspiration to so many. You don't walk 1 foot, 1 block, 1 couple of feet in CUNY homes when someone does not say what George Floyd did for them. I say this because I emphasize that George Floyd was valuable. George Floyd was worthy. George Floyd was mighty. And George Floyd was Gianna's father. He was much to these brothers and sisters. He was much to his community. He was much to the playing of basketball. He was much to Yates. He was much to the playing of football. And so on this day, in the midst of so many commemorative tragedies dealing with African Americans, black Americans who are patriotic, who have served in wars, who have given birth to woman that is 7 years old. She says, and told us that her father would save the world. So my task here today, besides embracing this family, getting you to have a sense of what Breonna Taylor's family is feeling, what Jacob Blake's family is feeling, what Walter Scott's family is feeling, what Tamir Rice could have graduated this year is feeling, what Abdou Diablo's, that mother who didn't even know what to do. Why my son unarmed in a dark hallway in the Bronx? What are they feeling? Mr. Rashad's feeling, family feeling, his 8-year-old is feeling, Ahmaud Arbery's family is feeling, Sandra Bland's family, Pamela Turner's family, Danny Ray Thomas's family are feeling now. And so we were propelled by this episode. I don't know about anybody else, but I had seen much, but I had not seen a view of pleasant enjoyment and causing the last breath to leave someone calling out, "I can't breathe," for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, but more importantly, calling out that special bond with his mother. And his wonderful sister would understand. I call him his big sister. She would understand. It is without a doubt that these Floyd children, siblings, these family members have graced this nation with their commitment, with their sadness, with their tragedy, with the heinousness of what they had to experience. And you will hear from them, you'll hear the pain that continues. The United States Congress was challenged to do something. And I want to thank my colleagues in the Congressional Black Caucus, my colleague and friend Karen Bass, the Chairman Jerry Nadler. And so we worked without ceasing. And we took into account the expertise of the lawyers that are here who time after time have had to show up to talk to mothers and fathers with them asking them, their lawyers. They came to give some relief, but the families were asking them why. And with their expertise, the numbers of things that have come up, let me make sure I mention Robbie Tolan. Because Robbie Tolan is our neighbor, Bel Air. Robbie Tolan lived, and sometimes you live with a sense of guilt, but Robbie Tolan was racially profiled, assumed that he wasn't the owner of a fancy SUV, even though his dad played major baseball and he was on the way, following him to a home. It's pretty strange if you're in a stolen car that you're going into a driveway and two people come out and say, "That's my son." That's pretty odd, but it happened in Bel Air. And when he was pushed against, when his family members, his mother and father were pushed against the wall, the garage door, he tried to lift up. He was shot point blank. He lived. So out of those stories, I don't want anyone to assume that the people who stand here today, I'm their lawyer today, have any angst or anger or against the cops or defund. We're about the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. The United States Congress heard that the voices were crying out, and we passed this bill. That's what this is about. And so very briefly, what I will say is that we did something unique. We had a hearing last year. We passed the bill last year in the midst of the outcry of the Floyds, but how kind they were to embrace others who were in pain. Right while they were in pain, Breonna Taylor came. Her family was in pain. They're still crying. Jacob Blake's family, he lived, but he is paralyzed. And he was simply trying to protect his children. And so it passed last year. This procedural dialogue is important, but I won't keep it long. It did not see a presidential signature. It did not see it because in the United States Senate, there was a bill that said that we believe, and I certainly give respect to the author of that bill, we hope to work with him. But his bill said we want to have body cams. I congratulate him for body cams. And so nothing was passed. But what happened this session is that this was passed with torpedo speed. We use a legitimate procedural House rule that says if you get this done before a certain deadline, then you can pass this bill without any hearings or any markups. Not anything ill-fated or illegitimate. It was the bill with refinement of last year. That means this bill is now headed to the United States Senate. We passed this bill in the House of Representatives. It was a victory for the Floyd family. I am grateful that they were able to join us. They were visited by members, including the Speaker of the House. So let me quickly just say to you what we're doing going forward. This bill is a bill that will speak to the hearts and minds of those who have been harmed by wrong kind of policing standards. And quickly, it will end racial profiling. It will provide training for the 18,000 police departments. It will ensure that there is a standard for excessive force, no more. A duty to intervene. You see, did anyone bother to say this was wrong? Did any officer who should have been trained say that he was racially profiled? Oh yes, somebody said somebody called about a bill. We have yet to find out whether the bill even was what they said the bill was. And I would test any man on the street to say, what is this bill? How do we know? racially profiled, came into a store that he always comes in. That's ending. Ending no-knock drug warrants would impact right here in Houston, Texas. Ending the idea in a criminal case that you had to be willful. Now you can be knowing and reckless. It is only to give fairness to those who go into the courtroom. It's not against anyone. To ensure that we have body cams, to ensure that we have pattern and practice. These lawyers will talk about that. To ensure consent decrees. We work with people who every day are frustrated by the system that knocks their clients out. And only because there are those who can civilly settle that they have any chance. Laquan in Chicago, running away, getting shot. Tamir Rice, a little BB gun, little baby of 12 years old. And Trayvon Martin. This guy said he was a civil patrol under color of law. And yes, we are thinkers. And the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act has the ability to be able to reimagine policing. And that means that people in Houston, different groups, can come together and say, here are our ideas. This is how we want to see our neighborhood police. This is how we want to see you come to a domestic violence case. Because you know what? That's a violent case for police officers. We want them to go home as well. So we have resources to help do that. That's the message that I want to be given. Not this message of what we were against, but what are we for? We're for the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, which takes policing to the level of civil rights. It is a seismic big day for policing in America. And so, as Gianna said to us, it wasn't really a statement, it was an instruction. My daddy changed the world, and we looked and we were empty-handed. We didn't really have anything to give her to say. We had no life-giving tools that we could utilize, and this is what we said we needed to give for her words to be to have merit. We had to do something, and so it is important for us to understand this is a seismic civil rights change. It's a big day. It's a big law. It is a law that needs to be passed and put on President Biden's desk as quickly as possible. The Senate needs to pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act to get to the President's desk. I want to end on this note because I want to dispel myths. This is not a myth, but I just want to acknowledge my good friend Jason Crow because we introduced the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act dealing with law enforcement integrity. Its name was the George Floyd Trust and Integrity Act that dealt with the training of police officers. It is merged into this bill. That's what's so good about this bill. It's a big umbrella that got many topics, demilitarization of policing. But this final word that I want to say captures Dr. Martin Luther King's Why We Can't Wait. It captures his injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. It captures Maya Angelou's, if they show you who they are, that is who they are. We want good police officers as they are around this community, walking back and forth and driving and doing their work. But we want to make sure that if you are constantly finding yourself on the other side of what is fair to a citizen, that you're in a registry that says that you can't work again. That's what the Tamir Rice, that police officer, went back and forth with bad conduct. So I'm going to end on the understanding of qualified immunity and that this is not a bipartisan bill. The Cato Institute supports this bill. The Cook Foundation, these are Republican-based institutions. And we are working with our colleagues in the Senate. But the angst that people talk about is how qualified immunity, that's going to be the thing that nobody wants. Could you take a moment to understand what it is? Again, I'm not going to get into weeds, but I'm ending on this. We love the Supreme Court on instances of justice. But the Supreme Court made up the qualified immunity. It's not a statute where the people voted on it. Teach. The Supreme Court made it up. Teach. And they made it up to the extent that if you are a victim, if you are a plaintiff, if you have been harmed because misconduct, remember, I didn't say you were harmed because an officer looked at you or greeted you with a smile or even arrested you. I said you were harmed when lives were taken away, when you were brutalized, when someone found you and you said, well, what happened to you? When drugs were dropped down on you. Qualified immunity created by the courts, not a statute. And so what we have done with that is to be able to give the victim the opportunity to go into court. By modifying that standard, and the simple part of it is, that means the officer and the victim, the family, can go into court to argue that my loved one did not die in the normal course of policing, did not die in the normal course of policing. He died and he was harmed, and he should not be prevented because qualified immunity blocks you at the courthouse door. That's what happened to Robbie Tolan, all the way to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said, you've got to do this case right here in Houston, Texas. And it came back. He went into the federal court, dismissed qualified immunity. You can't sue a police officer. He's already immune, or she. We come here today with a humble expression of our respect for each and every person that is here, and a humble respect for the family that is here. And it is a humble respect for my colleague as well. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very pleased to have my colleague come forward, because we work as a team. As I step away from this podium, this is the answer that little Gianna asked us when she said, my daddy changed the world. This is a bill that now goes to the United States Senate. There should be no action other than a forward-moving action to pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. My friend, the Honorable Al Green.